and relationships. This is the Growth to Freedom Show. Now, here is your host, Dan Kuschell.
Welcome to growthtofreedom.com, the show that helps inspire, transform, build leadership, add new capabilities for you to experience growth and freedom. Today's an exciting day, by the way, because we're going to talk about a topic that I think is near and dear and close to all of our hearts. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt lonely or maybe alone as an individual? Or maybe you're concerned about your kids, right? And not really building a strong bond and a connection to who they are or what they do or so on. Or maybe you're a parent that you'd love to spend more quality time and quantity time, but you just don't know where to start. Well, today's expert can show you how to be able to do just that. His name is Jim Sheils. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a real estate mogul, if you will, and he'll never say that. He's a real estate investor, having done over 1,000 real estate deals in his career with him and his partner. He founded a company called boardmeetings.com or Board Meetings International. Go visit him at boardmeetings.com. We're going to talk today about 3 steps to connection. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about building what he calls your own board meetings to really bring unity to you, to your family. You know what? To reduce suffering as it relates to feeling alone, loneliness, or isolation. And you know what? I know this topic isn't really hit on much in the public these days, but it's one of those things that we don't talk about. And by the way, our show today is brought to you by doneforyousolutions.com. That's doneforyousolutions.com. We'd love to connect with you on Twitter. You can find us at Dan_Kuschell. We've got a lot of chatter going on Twitter. We'd love you to join in the conversation. That's Dan_KUSCHELL. Or you can email us at info@growthtofreedom.com. That's info@growthtofreedom.com. And by the way, stay tuned because we've got a special resource package that we're going to talk about. Jim's offering some incredible resources to make available to you to help bridge the gap here as well, to bring you more clarity, confidence, and capability. So, Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, it's an absolute honor. I mean, you've had this incredible success and journey, and I want to dive right into it, Jim. Maybe take a little bit of a curve, if you will, overall. But starting off, why did you create board meetings in the first place? What happened? What was it in your situation that led you on this inspiration, this journey, if you will?
Dan, I'd say it was 2 things. It was the observation that I was having time and time again of attending some top level events. You and I actually met through these events, and although there was phenomenal growth and success, there was a lack of connection for a lot of successful entrepreneurs between them and their children, especially their children, not only the rest of their family, but especially their children. And I thought it seemed like an empty victory without the people we cared the most about getting to really get below the surface with us and know who we are and be connected. And with my own life, I went through an incredible experience with my father about 5 years ago when he got sick, when he was very sick, and I had to donate a kidney to him, and that really put my life in a different light. I know you had a similar health situation, Dan, years ago. And then with the start of my own family, which I'm sure we'll talk about today, it just made me figure out what's most important and what were people really looking for. It wasn't always the next strategy, the next tip, the next growth module. It was, what do we have and how can we see what's more important and be more engaged with the people around us? And that's pretty much what board meetings is all about. It's about deepening relationships and improving education for our kids.
And that's a powerful cause. Deepening connection, deepening relationships with your kids. I mean, what would that be worth? I mean, I want you to think about, as you're watching, as you're listening right now, where would we be today if Jim's message, his mission, his vision, his passion was realized 5 years ago, right? He's just gotten started in the last couple, but let's fast forward, or backtrack, if you will, to 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and there was a methodology to bring parents, families together with their kids, right? And help provide that esteem, that confidence, that clarity overall, where would it be? Well, we can't do anything as you're watching or listening right now about the last 5 to 10 years, but we can certainly do something about the next 5 to 10 years, and that's what Jim is here to share with you today. So, Jim, overall, with what you're up to, again, you've had this amazing amount of success. When people go visit you at boardmeetings.com, they see all the incredible testimonials. I mean, it's very emotional. It's very touching. I mean, you can even see it in the pictures and the photos that are there on your site overall. But it hasn't always been this way. And I want to give people a perspective. I like to do this in the show on your journey of, doing 1,000 real estate deals, building all these companies, being a best-selling author, right? Being a thought leader in many ways. What would you say in your career has been your biggest mistake, or maybe your lowest point that you can think of?
Dan, in 2008, the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, I'm a real estate investor, very heavily invested in real estate. That's been my core business that I've built board meetings off of. We were heavily invested in California and Florida. Enough said.
Yes.
People don't remember the headlines. I was the headlines. So that was a point where we really had to dig deep. And there was a saying that's really come to the forefront in everything I do in my life now, Dan. And it's before I figure out what's next, I had to figure out what was important. And during that time, not only was I, starting to get into family life and everything, but we had a lot of people depending on us, a lot of investors. And where a lot of people were just throwing in the towel and walking away, we just made a very conscious decision to say, one way or another, we're going to get through this because we want to protect our investors. And so I think that the toughest part was, for me, on a business level, was the meltdown, because I was so heavily invested, and you had to make some tough decisions to be able to get your business to continue to thrive and protect the people that trusted you.
Yep. And there's that battle, right, of, protecting your investors or your stakeholders, if you will, and then also protecting you, your family, and so on. And that isn't always an easy thing. And many times you don't know what you're going to. You'd like to think you know what you're going to do until you're in that moment. So speak to that a little bit and some of the tough choices you had to make.
We had to give up quite a few luxuries in order to protect the integrity of the business and keep our investors whole. We had to choose to take a path that it wasn't easy. It wasn't saying, okay, we'll do this for 30 days, 45 days, and we're good. No, we knew that it would be about a 3-year climb to be able to take this plan to turn things around and keep things going, to be able just to get back to where we were. So, going to bed 3 years with those kind of pressures is pretty big. And at the same time, you want to be fully present for your family. You don't want them to feel the growth struggles. And you don't want to wake up one morning and say, holy cow, it's October. I don't think I've really spent any time with my son or daughter. I mean, who wants to feel that? So you just have to make those decisions to say, even as you're climbing your way out, you have to say, I can't sprint the whole way, and I'm not going to sacrifice the people most important for my business pursuits.
And one of the things you and I got a chance to meet through Joe Polish and geniusnetwork.com, right? And one of the things that's just true about you is that you're always concerned about not only what you're doing, but your stakeholders and taking care of your family overall. And I get the sense that that's always been important to you. And like a lot of us in business, at the end of the day, we're all doing the very best we can. We don't know all the answers. We figure it out along the way. And that's one of the biggest lies or myths that most of us face, right, Jim, is that we got to know everything going in, but we figure it out. And that's why the power of, being a part of a peer group or a mastermind or those types of things are so important. So in this journey, as you were going through this meltdown, that, having to cut luxuries, likely if you're like I was when I've gone through some of my, many sleepless nights, right, being disturbed and uncertain of what was going on. What did you learn by going through all this and what I would call that transformation? Or Joe, I've heard him describe it as the little hinge that swings the big door.
What I learned is, again, if you take the time to figure out what's important before you try to figure out what's next. It was taught to me by a mentor and friend of mine. it makes all the difference. Just that simple thing. What's important before what's next? Because we're all saying, what's next, what's next, what's next, especially when we have pressures. But figure out first what's important. And the hinge for me was if we're talking about for the board meetings philosophy and that, is I was going to treat my wife and my children with the same respect as I do my biggest investors, key clients, key team members. And that sounds maybe a little off. You say, well, that's silly. But I've also learned that which gets scheduled gets done. You know, when we schedule big meetings and we have this, we give them that priority. And you don't want to be incongruent at home. So I started to really schedule things with my family, which is how the board meeting strategy came about.
And the board meeting strategy is fascinating, and we're going to get more into detail on the rituals and so on. But as you're watching, as you're listening right now, I mean, do you find yourself having to deal with pressure? I mean, at the end of the day, most of us are in a high-stakes environment. And it's a game that we're playing, this incredible game called life, or this incredible game called business. And, you know, what if you could take the simple philosophy that Jim is sharing here of instead of thinking what's next, think about what's important. And what if you could start thinking about the ability to make your family, your kids, your community a priority, that personal community called family or your kids, that as important as a stakeholder, as important as a board member, as important as an owner or an executive in your companies or doing what you do. What would that do for you? I mean, imagine the growth you'd experience. Imagine the freedom. Imagine the bond, the connection, the love, the spirit, the contribution, the growth that you would instill not only for you as a leader, because that's what leaders, Jim, they lead by example, don't they?
They do.
Yeah, and you definitely, you personify that. You walk your talk. You lead by example overall. And when we come back, we're going to talk more with Jim Sheils about the board meeting strategy of how to, turn pressure into opportunity, how to turn obstacles into being you at your very best. That and a whole lot more with Jim Sheils of boardmeetings.com right after this. Welcome back. Are you ready for more transformation, inspiration, and leadership? Well, let's summarize the first segment of the show. We've got Jim Sheils, who's a serial entrepreneur. He's a real estate investor, real estate mogul, done over 1,000 deals. He's the founder of boardmeetings.com. I mean, let's face it, you and I have faced pressure before, right? We play a high-stakes game called life. And sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. And at the end of the day, it's not what's next, as Jim says, it's what's important. Have you sat down and identified really what's important for you? I mean, for me, I know my kids are important. How about you? And at the end of the day, what better legacy can we leave than making a difference for our kids? I mean, where will we be in the next 5 to 10 years as a country if we build better, stronger, more self-confident, self-aware, self-directed leaders in our children? And that's what Jim and boardmeetings.com helps do. So Jim, let's dive into it. I'm a big believer in rituals, right? And I know you are as well. I mean, obviously building the company that you and Brian have built, your partner, Brian Scrone, have been able to build. I mean, you implement a lot of rituals. You've adapted some, innovated some, created it for building unity and connection in the family. So let's dive into it. Talk about board meetings, what they are, those rituals. How can our listeners and viewers apply them on a daily basis?
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, the strategy is real easy, and it was based off the simple philosophy of something that I think all of us agree on, whether we think about it or not, and that's there is absolutely no substitute for quality time. If you want to have a deep relationship with your kids, none. There's nothing, not a fancy private school, not money, not toys. You want to have a deep, meaningful relationship off the surface. There's no substitute for quality time. So we have to make sure that the quality time is facilitated properly, because there's a difference between just time together and quality time together. And we also have to make it consistent. And if there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there listening, we get so busy and so wrapped up that sometimes consistency is not our strongest suit. So if you set certain rhythms, like you were saying, Dan, in place, that can make the difference. And what we see for our board meeting strategy, it's just pillars in the relationship that you can depend on every 90 days, year after year. building upon, getting below the surface and having the relationship that you want. And the board meeting strategy is simple. Do you want me to tell Dan now what it is, how it works?
Yes, and in just a moment, I want to share something as well, because I remember the first time I heard you say board meeting, right? One of the things that popped up, I'm a guy, I don't know if you feel this way as well, but at a subconscious level and now conscious level, I'm someone who doesn't like meetings in general, right? And I'm sure you've never heard that before, right?
No.
So talk about the difference of what you're referencing when you talk. What does it mean in your mind to have a board meeting versus what most of us would look at as a standard, corporate-esque meeting, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think with board meetings, it's always been a play on words for us. Board meetings, we think of the old 1980s IBM and guys in stuffed suits with big spreadsheets just sitting in an office, dank office, corporate building, just bored out of their minds, going through just brutal stuff. And I've always put a spin on it. Again, I'm a surfer, so I go surfing, so I have entrepreneur friends. We meet up for board meetings, play on word with surfboards. And out of those trips is actually where a lot of this philosophy came from. And we said, well, why don't we just even morph it more, where we start to have board meetings with our children. So the same way that big companies get together every 90 days, every quarter, to have a board meeting to go over what they're working on, to reunite the team, and then plan the next 90 days moving forward, that's what we start doing with our kids. But it's not in these stuffy old IBM conference rooms. It's out in wherever the kids want to go, and that's part of the activity, which we'll explain. So the board meeting has a fun play on words, where you're not sitting in a boring conference room somewhere. You're out with your child doing something that I absolutely guarantee, once people explain it and start using it, I know you know, Dan, these will be the things that they remember the most, period, end of story, because our philosophy is almost like cheating. Because when you put these things together, it's just such a powerful result.
And do you want that kind of result? I mean, imagine the outcome that you'd have spending not just quantity and quality time together, being able to connect, to bond, to have fun. And there is a unique process to be able to do this the right way, because done wrong, you can sabotage your relationship, you can sabotage yourself, and it's all about the simple framework that Jim's going to talk about here. So Jim, talk about that framework and what is the focus. When I do a meeting with my kids, or our viewers do a meeting with their kids, a board meeting quarterly with their kids, what are the steps? What's the focal point of that meeting?
Okay, great question, Dan, and it's very simple for people to understand and start applying. So a board meeting, how it works, again, is once a quarter, every 90 days, you have a board meeting with your son or daughter. And it has to be at least 4 hours, uninterrupted. And there's a reason for that. Again, I'm not going to go into all the science today, but there's a reason for that. One of the big reasons is decompression, to open up the lines of communication. But it's got to be at least 4 hours. And there's only 3 guidelines to it. 3, that's it. And it's one-on-one, without electronics, fun activity with focused reflection. And I can go into each one of those, but each one of those principles builds off the other. And it's things, Dan, that you and I have actually dug deeper into in our mastermind groups, because these are powerful principles used in other areas, but we've just put them together to focus on parents using them to connect with their kids.
And these are so simple. Let me make sure I've got them. Number 1, it's one-on-one. Number 2, no electronics. And number 3, it's got to be fun-focused.
A fun activity with focused reflection. Yeah, and I'll go through each one to explain how they build off of it. The one-on-one, this is one that's huge. Dan, I know you have 2 children, and this was something that we discovered when we were first trying to put something together that would be impactful and long-lasting. So we're saying, how do we really facilitate the quality time? And the same way, if you have a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you're wanting to deepen that relationship, you're going to go, let's say, on a couple's retreat. Well, you're not going to bring a friend, you're not going to bring a neighbor, you're not going to bring a son or a daughter. It's a couple's retreat. You're focusing on that one relationship. And children, and this includes children up to 25, 30, they thrive on undivided attention. There's too much sibling competition, sibling rivalry. Even if you say, oh, no, my kids don't have it, it's there, to have more than one person. And when you get one-on-one, it's like a magnifying glass put over the time together and the relationship. So one-on-one is absolutely key. It's so simple, and so many people haven't used it. I remember in our mastermind group, Dan, a couple people came up to me and said, you know what, I have 4 kids, And this makes so much sense. I don't remember the last time I was one-on-one with one of them for 4 hours. I just don't remember. We're always doing things together, and you got to separate the parts to strengthen the whole. So that's one-on-one. The second one was without electronics. And, a hero of mine is who you and Joe introduced me to, is Dr. Ned Hollowell from Harvard Business School, Harvard Medical School, I'm sorry. And his information is phenomenal. He's done more research than I could ever imagine. And reading up on it, the results of what electronics are doing to block connection in our deepest relationships, it's stunning.
It is stunning, Jim. And as you're watching right now, as you're listening, what would happen if you were able to spend that one-on-one time with your kids individually, right, and apply the philosophy and realize that the separate parts make the whole stronger? That, you know what, you don't have to be blocked by technology. And there is a big block, and we're going to show you how to break through that. In order to have a breakthrough, you've got to be willing to break something. We're going to show you how to do that and a whole lot more with Jim Sheils here on Growth to Freedom right after this. Welcome back. I have a question as you're watching, as you're listening right now. Do you believe that leadership starts at home? Do you believe that leadership is being able to influence our kids, to impact them with giving them the gifts of confidence, clarity, capabilities to set them up for their bigger future? Well, if so, our guest today, Jim Sheils, is someone who can show you how to be able to do just that in a very simple, practical way that if you'll just, A, take the time to learn, and B, then put into place and start using and doing, there's no limit to what you can do, not only at home, but also this story starts to share to other people. And in fact, we had a question from our video engineer here, Jim, that I'd love to throw your way. And that question was,
Sure.
If I don't have kids, how does this apply to the rest of my family overall? Can I do this? He's in his 20s, right? How can this apply to with my extended family and so on? So speak to that a little bit.
It's funny you say that, Dan, because we designed this specifically to connect with our children. And I'll tell the story, as you know, you've heard it a few times, about my oldest son, Alden, and that's really where a lot of this came into heavy play for me. But as we started to explain this, people said, I started using this with my father. I started using this with my spouse. I started using this with my brother. Because the principles work with deepening any relationship. So it can be shared in different areas. I remember there was actually someone in one of our mastermind groups, Dan, that's very well known and very successful, and his wife came up to me about 6 months after and said, I just want to let you know, we started using your strategy for exactly what we're doing, and we have a totally different relationship because of step 2, because of without electronics. We had not gone out to dinner without the phone buzzing, taking a call, taking an email, tweeting or something, and they said just starting to use the philosophy and really focusing on step 2 of being aware of the electronics, it totally changed it. So for the camera guy, he can know he can use it in almost any relationship because the principles work the same. And not everyone has children, but everyone yearns for connection.
Yearns for connection. And you know what? As you're watching, as you're listening, you want to get out of disconnecting and being disconnected, although there's this false intimacy that appears real called your cell phone. Well, one of the best things I think we can all do, and I'm working really hard at this, I'm not here calling the kettle black because I deal with this myself. I have a compulsive, almost addictive type personality, Jim, and I work hard. My wife helps me with this, and I'm not perfect at it by any means, but I'm getting better all the time, which is putting this dang cell phone away, right?
Yeah.
And, when we go out, giving it to her and putting it in the purse and not opening it up, right? And those kind of simple little things bring us together. They bring that unity for us overall, to bring the connection that you're talking about instead of disconnection. So to summarize the first couple segments of the show, where we left off, you talked about the 3 steps, one-on-one, right? No electronics.
Electronics.
And then
we got the third step.
The third step, which is fun activities that are focused, right? And
yeah, exactly.
So speak to that a little bit here.
Okay, so fun activity with focused reflection, for some educators out there, it is the shortest definition for experiential education. And if you've done any research research on experiential education. It is the most effective education on the planet, bar none. I mean, the data is there to support that. However, it takes a little more effort to put it together. And so experiential education has been helpful to guys like you and I for different things we've done, Dan, and for kids going to a camp or something. But until, and I don't want to give us credit, but until we really started to focus and use it to deepen the relationship between entrepreneur and their kids, it hasn't been used in this area. And we said, well, this is crazy. This can be used along with one-on-one time, no electronics, doing experiential education with a focused reflection. And all that means is you do an activity together, and then at the end you spend a little bit of time having space to communicate about it. How this works is this. With this activity, every 90 days, you do this activity, not you. See, there's ownership. You let them choose the activity. And you want to see something cute. You start to ask a 4- and 5-year-old about the board meeting you're going to have, and they start to really get interested in planning. Okay, my next one's coming up in a few weeks. They start to scratch their head. They start to do this, and they pick something. They have ownership. If you're not going to drag them off to a boat show, if you like boats and they have no interest and say, wasn't this great, we bonded, that'll totally ruin the trust. So you let them pick the fun activity, and at the end, you save some space to communicate. And even just ask the simple question. The first question of experiential education is, what was your favorite part of today and why?
What was your favorite part and why? And as you're watching or listening right now, what is your favorite part of this show today and why? I'm going to share with you. I believe it's Jim Sheils and what he's sharing with you about boardmeetings.com and how to put it in place. And when we come back, we're going to dive deeper on building connections with Jim Sheils here on growthtofreedom.com. Welcome back. I have a question as you're watching or listening right now. You do realize that games in football are won or lost in the fourth quarter, right? So don't you touch that dial, because you just might miss out on the most important guidance and wisdom, actionable strategies that Jim Sheils could share with you about building a better connection, building unity, building a bond with you, your kids, your family. And this applies not only with your kids, but it can apply to your spouse, can apply to your brother, can apply to your sister, dad, mom, wherever it applies to you. And that's what we want to show and bring you today, the opportunity for transforming, inspiring, and leadership, because that's what it's all about. So, Jim, you left off talking about number 3. So step 1, just to give you a recap as you're watching or listening right now, 3 guidelines to this simple approach in the boardmeetings.com approach, which is one-on-one, no electronics, and then a fun activity with focused reflection. And you left off, it's experiential, focus on what they want, not what you want, right? Make it fun, and then have some reflection time overall, which is, one of the questions, what's your favorite part of today and why, right?
Exactly. And if you do that, again, it's like anything. The first time you got onto ice skates and you got out there, it might feel a little awkward. You might feel a little out of place. But you have powerful principles working behind you. If you've set this, let them have the ownership of picking it. You're one-on-one. The phone has been off. You've now had the chance to have some serious decompression where communication opens up, and you've had a good time together. And once you get someone laughing, they can talk about almost anything. And the reports of what I've heard about teenagers opening up about in these little board meetings is profound. I look back and say, I wish I had that space with my father and mother to open up. I mean, it could be anything for as crazy as puberty. I mean, who wants to talk about puberty in front of their little brother or sister? I mean, no thanks.
Right.
You don't know where it's going to come from. But one thing I'm sure is when you set these meetings, and again, every 90 days, as you know, with a lot of transformation groups, it's a very applicable number for what we're trying to do here. There's always anticipation for the next one, and it's not too long back to reflect on the last one. And when you continue to do these every 90 days, get together with your kids, 4 hours, uninterrupted, one-on-one, no phones, no computers, doing a fun activity of their choice. Spend some time to communicate at the end, and you'll get more used to that. And I guarantee you're going to have some moments of clarity where you want to say something that you've been meaning to say to them. Say it, because you're going to be happy. But if you do this, Dan, consistently, you're going to build pillars in your relationships. And I guarantee actually had to say, well, I really enjoyed the board meeting where you and I went to that football game. I enjoyed that board meeting where we went fishing on this thing, or whatever you're going to do. The way that this has been set up, these moments are very well remembered. And that's what we all want to build. We all want to look back on the relationship, and this is truly marking the time of one of your most important relationships.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and people probably say, Dan, why is this so important? Why does this surfer guy in Florida getting so excited about this? I know you've seen this, Dan. You and Joe gave me the opportunity. I think it was the first time I opened up on stage in front of over 500 people at your I Love Marketing event about why this strategy meant so much to me. And as you know, I have 3 children. I have a biological daughter, and 2 of my sons are adopted. And my oldest son, Alden, when I came into his life at the age of 7, he had some real struggles that we had to overcome. And he had some trust issues, and for good reason, for things that he had been through. But when I came on the scene, Dan, he was close to failing in school. He was a terrible student. He had been put on the spectrum, the big fancy word used by public schools, put on the spectrum for autism, and suffered from night terrors. And if you don't know what those are, you're lucky, because it's awful. It's when your child wakes up in a half-conscious state, screaming and terrified. It could take hours to get them back to sleep. And I knew these things could change. We had already started working with entrepreneur families. I knew I could start to apply it to my own relationship with my son. And we started to have these board meetings. And this is where they really got solidified. And the changes that happened in these board meetings, again, every 90 days, they built upon the next. And I'm very proud to say, and I'm, as you saw, Dan, I broke down and cried in front of over 500 people, which is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I thought it was important to know, because I want other people to have these breakthroughs. Within 1 year, my son went from failing in school, and he received the reward for the most improved student in the 3rd grade, and he received this award at the end of the year, and he was absolutely beaming. He was taken off the autism spectrum. They admitted it was a mistake. They thought it was stress-related, but they admitted it was a mistake. He was not autistic. I knew that. It was stress-related. They took him off the spectrum, which can be hard to do. And then last and most important to me is that night terrors were completely gone. I would have given my entire real estate portfolio for that, Dan. I would have. I mean, hands down. And I know so many other people out there would do the same. I know you do the same for your kids. But you don't have to. We just have to set the stage for proper quality time and consistently be there in the relationship. And that's what this strategy does. That's what it did for me. That's what it can do for other people. That's why I get excited, because this is not something that's just going to stop with you and I or our kids. It can go to their kids and to their kids. I mean, it's very exciting to see. There's no substitute for quality time. This is something you can use time after time and lean on, and it's going to get you the results. And that's what I want to see for everyone.
Absolutely. And your message just rings true. I mean, this is true leadership at its core. And you know what? As you're watching or listening, for all of us, me included, it starts at home. I want to encourage you. I want to challenge you right here, right now, as you're watching or listening. You need to listen to this interview now, and then I want you to put it in your calendar and listen to it in 90 days from now as a reminder. And you know why I bring Jim on? Hey, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes with my kids, my family, my spouse, the quality relationships that mean something. But why I like to interview people like Jim and also talk to him frequently is because he's a constant reminder of having good rituals, having good habits to build that into our lifestyle, because it's easy. I can't speak for everyone, but for me, it's easy to be distracted. It's easy for me to be compulsive over this thing or that thing. And you know what? It doesn't have to be that way when you've got a great coach like Jim reminding you, and he's in my ear, and I'm grateful to call him a friend. Guess what? It can transform the quality not only of your life as a leader, but it makes a difference where it matters most with our kids and our future generations. And that is what's most important. Now, Jim, with that, because I know you've got to fly to another appointment, and I promised you I'd have you done before that, where can people reach you? Where can people get more information about what you're up to, et cetera?
Yeah, if you want to, well, first off, Dan, if they go to www.qualitytimerevolution.com, just www.qualitytimerevolution.com, what they'll find there is actually that 10-minute, 15-minute talk that I did for you and Joe Polish at the I Love Marketing event, where I actually pretty much debuted the strategy. And that was a very exciting thing, so that they want to watch that. And they'll also get a free download of our short ebook called The Family Board Meeting, which will go into more supporting detail on the board meeting strategy. So they can not only see the talk, but also get a free copy of the ebook. They can read it in a day, and I swear this is something that they'll constantly use for years to come. Once you start, you're not going to want to stop. It's a very positive addiction to have quality time consistently with your kids. So that's one way. And if some people, especially entrepreneurs out there, they want a little support and help getting them going. And a big fan, I'm a big fan, Dan, as I know you are, of Dan Sullivan.
Yes.
He's been a mentor in lots of ways to me. And he was the one who always said, transformation rarely happens in isolation. And that's why we started doing our retreats and kind of our mastermind setup where we bring parents and their children together, one parent, one child. So some people might want to go a bigger step than not just our strategy they'll use at home, but also to get together for a meeting, to share support, to get their kids interacting with other like-minded children, to have other parents supporting them, and for their kids to experience a mastermind at a young age. And that's why we do our retreats, and you can learn all about those at boardmeetings.com. www.boardmeetings.com. But a starting point, Dan, is go to qualitytimerevolution.com. Watch the 15-minute talk. Read the book. It'll take you a day. You know, there's no charge for this. This is something, though, you will be able to take with you forever. That is a promise that I absolutely make.
And I want to encourage you as you're watching, as you're listening right now, number one, listen to this interview over and over again. Number two, put it in your calendar every 90 days to remind you to have this quality time and the effective time with you and the special people in your life, especially your kids. Go to qualitytimerevolution.com. That's qualitytimerevolution.com. You'll get access to the 10-minute talk. You'll get access to the best-selling book, Family Board Meeting. And not only is there the thoughts behind it, but you're going to get worksheets and checklists and tools to be able to do your own board meetings, the questions to ask. I mean, you've basically put everything together in a very simple blueprint for them, haven't you?
Yes. Yep. It's theirs to use and to run with.
And as a high-level entrepreneur, as you're watching or listening, go to boardmeetings.com. Learn about the cool experiential events that you can take part in as well. I know I had one here recently with my kids that we did. They wanted to go to this Wet n Wild, this water park slide overall, and it was a blast, and we're still trying to debate who actually had the most fun at that. And so not only is it fun for your kids when you focus on what they want, but don't be shocked if the strategic byproduct for that is that you have as much fun, maybe even more, and get to relive some of those experiences of your childhood too. So, Jim, I want to thank you for being on with us today, buddy. Time flies when we're having fun, and it's been awesome. And I just want to say how much I appreciate what you do, who you are, and the message that you're sharing. And any way we can support you, I'd love to have you on again, probably in another 90 days or so, because I need the reminder.
No problem. And Dan, the pleasure's all mine. I really enjoyed talking with you and getting the chance to share the message and work together on this.
Absolutely. So go check out what he's up to at boardmeetings.com. Go to qualitytimerevolution.com. Get your resource package that he's made available. Jim, again, thanks for being with us, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
Thank you, Dan. Have a good day, all.
You too. Awesome. Now, as you're watching, as you're listening right now, I mean, what would happen if you took this simple strategies, this 3-step approach that Jim's been talking about? Number one, it's one-on-one. Number two, no electronics. You delete it, get rid of it, throw it away. Take that dang phone and throw it across the room or tuck it away in a drawer somewhere so you don't have access to it. And number three, create fun activities with focused reflection. And you know what? He talks about 4 hours. On top of doing that once a quarter, what if you started condensing time frames? One of the gifts that I have come to discover, in addition to applying what Jim is talking about, I also have started something with my wife. I've talked about a ritual that I've come to adore. I think she's come to love, and it's walks with my wife. And we do this a couple days a week now. It's about a 3-mile walk. We take this journey. We stop at Starbucks, come back home. But the conversation, the bonding time, it helps slow my brain down because, as you probably can tell, I get excited about certain things. I'm compulsive about certain things. I'm obsessive about certain things, sometimes even addictive about certain things. And what those walks help us do is come together, have those meaningful conversations, those meaningful moments, right? Those memories that Jim's been talking about. How'd you like to create more memories? memorable moments in your life. Well, apply what Jim's been talking about. Apply the simple 3 guidelines. Apply the question. The quality of our life is determined by the quality of questions that we ask. What is your favorite part of today? And I hope in some small way that this show is one of those things, right? That it's one of your favorite things, that you subscribe to it on iTunes, that you visit us on our YouTube channel, that you share this message with those you care about, with all the Growth to Freedom show. You can get this episode, a recap of this episode at growthtofreedom.com/36. That's growthtofreedom.com/36. And I just want to thank you for being a part of our community, our tribe. If this has impacted you in some small way, I hope you'll repeat after me. I'm a winner. I'm a champion. I'm the best. I deserve it. And you know what? You do. You do deserve it. And when you start putting the simple practical solutions in place, step by step, there's no limit to what you can do. Where you can go. And imagine the possibility, the ability of confidence and certainty and freedom and independence and growth and contribution, being connected and loving and or providing that to others, right? The significance, the purpose, the meaning, right? So you can get a recap of the show at growthtofreedom.com/36. Download our show on iTunes. You can subscribe on iTunes by looking up Growth to Freedom as well. We'd love to connect with you. You can find us on Twitter at Dan_Kuschell. That's Dan_Kuschell, or email us at info@growthtofreedom.com. Make sure to post your comments. Share this show. Share the episode. Let us know how you've liked Jim. And we'll see you next time. Make sure to go out, seize the day, apply what you've learned. We'll see you next time on growthtofreedom.com.